because it really does, and to me, it's very interesting on exploring the deal with the death of a loved one. And I really do love the way you took that and developed that. Where did the story come about? How did you decide that this is the way you wanted to tell this story?
It took a very long time to get there, to be honest. It began as a very sort of just like distant document of place, of what does the border look like through the eyes of the people living there. And it was just kind of like flowing between both sides, with the mayors of both sides, with businesses, of just kind of like, how does this place work? Because I wanted, back in 2017, I was working at a newsroom. I'm sorry, 2016, I was working in a newsroom in New York, and it was, during the 2016 election, and the way that the border was being talked about just felt so unfamiliar to me. Just I was like, I was just there. It's not that crazy. And so I wanted to go back home and just and film this sort of like counter narrative, is very much responding to the rhetoric, and after a while it became more um evident that I needed to revisit my experience, what I know of the border is growing up, because that's what I lived there. K through 12, I was born and raised there. I left when I graduated high school, and and obviously always go back, but my experience really living there was as a child, and so I wanted to revisit all of those moments, and what it looked like to grow up there. And it wasn't until the pandemic happened that, our filming got shut down, like as it did for everybody. And we wanted to figure out how to continue to tell the story with what we had. And so that's when the narration came in. But it was still very excuse me, detached. It was just kind of like, I just want to show everybody this experience. I don't want it to be sort of biased to what uh I still was trying to have this sort of like journalistic approach, I guess, because I come from journalism. And so um it wasn't until we worked with our writing consultant, Barbara Cigarroa, who's an incredible screenwriter, that was going through our footage and helping us sort of craft the narration. And she was like, I'm not understanding why, we're spending several minutes with a family in the kitchen. Like, why does this matter? And I was just like, because these are the moments we don't get to see with families on the border, just sort of being and existing. And she's, from the border, and she's like, I understand, but it's just not connecting with me. And so she was like, let's just kind of like hang out and chat. And I started telling her, about my motivations and why I came back home and what I was going through. And that's when I opened up to her about Mars. And back then, after Mars died, I kind of lot just didn't know how to talk about my family anymore. When before, when I met new people, my brothers were always my favorite topic. And after Mars died, I just didn't know how to talk about myself and talk about, my identity as a sister of all these brothers without him there. And so when I finally did open up to her, she was like, now I understand why you wanted to revisit all of these moments and you wanted to collect all of this, because, you're searching for your childhood and your experience and trying to reclaim some of that. And so she really encouraged me, and Alex did too, to just let myself and let ourselves be vulnerable and open basically open our diary up, you know, and open ourselves to connecting through that loss, and being able to connect our experience of what we were in the moment searching for, of what we were going through emotionally and internally that whole time, but we just hadn't shared it. So it really wasn't until the end of it that it kind of started coming all together as a personal narrative.
Yep. And I think it's a very smart way of doing it because not only are you really showing the border in which 9 years later we're going through this again. Ironic, it is ironic that we're doing this all over again. But it's like, but this, it's a way where people are going to be able to look at the border, digest it in a more easier aspect than what the rhetoric that's been going on over the last, crazy to say, 2 weeks. Um, Alejandro, when you were crafting this on as a producer side, how important was it to give that balance? But not knowing that we would be in this mess all over again.
I Yeah, I think from the beginning, it felt like it was really important to, and there were there were people along the way that said, but you have to contextualize the time, like people that don't know about what's happening on the border, like you have to talk about the politics of what's going on. And for us, I think that it was really important to not anchored the film to this time. It's like, yes, we are going through this political cycle. Yes, Donald Trump is in office. Yes, um, the border is getting militarized, but this is a moment in time, and and the culture that we know and that we are experts on has been in creation for the last 100 plus years. That's the thing that we're interested in talking about, and that's the thing that's going to continue no matter what happens. And so, how do we tell a story that is timeless, that is talking about that you can see it in 20 years, like that my nieces and nephew can see it when they're of age to understand, and they can feel like it's relevant to them. And so it was super important for us to talk about something that wasn't of the anchoring it in this time, even though we do say like, oh, it's the 2018 Maverick County Livestock Show. So like we know where we are when we are in the film, but it was it was very important for us to talk about the personal because everybody else already has that context. Everyone's consuming news, and so Um, I think that's the thing that I'm excited to, it's the idea that we had and people are responding to it pretty well. And I'm so excited for more storytellers to focus on or to practice and to play with this type of storytelling. Like the context already exists around us. So what is the thing that you want people to take away and how do you want them to reframe what they know about a place? And so, and I feel like people are getting to come to Eagle Pass and being like, oh, this isn't what I expected. I'm getting to hang out and I'm getting to know what it's like to go to the club and to go to a quince and what it feels like to not fit in, even though I am not Mexican American. I get these experiences and I think that's so exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like about it is the fact that like it like you said, it's gonna welcome people in and it's gonna give people an idea of a new form of, especially for Robbie, who you came from the journalism world, so did I, that telling a new way of telling a story that's reporting on what we're going through, but also doing it in a way that's gonna sink in. And I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of journalists now doing is transforming the narrative instead of just going, this is a story, this is what's going on to the next story. This is taking a story and really developing it and really showing it in a different way. I have a friend actually in El Paso who's doing the exact same thing.
Wow.
And it's great to see that. What when you take that, because documentaries and doing something like this is very much journalism. and telling it in a different way. Your skills from what you growing up as to developing and directing in this, how much of that do you feel translated into this whole piece?
I think that what I did a lot was try to reject a lot of the things that I was taught because, I came with that and I sort of came paying attention to everything that, was going on in the news cycle and following it back, trying to follow it back home. And I'd have my friends text me, is like, is everything okay? I mean, when we went through this back in the first time of like, in 2017, when, all these executive orders were signed and things were going on, it's just like, and then the border and something crazy is happening and they text me and then I try to go and find it. And in the beginning, I felt like I'm chasing stories from the outside in, but this is not actually happening here. Everybody's chilling and fine. And actually, when I came back to film the movie, the first thing that I shot was the abrazo ceremony, which happens every March in our hometowns, and a lot of other border towns do it too, where both mayors of both towns meet in the middle of the bridge and they do this whole hug ceremony where they sort of promise to renew economic and cultural ties every year. And then they have a week-long celebration. And meanwhile, that week in the news, there was like, all this terrible stuff is happening on the border. And it was just like, no, the thing is that there needs to be more stories told from the inside because people that are living there, that are the experts on this place, because they know how it functions, will get to share what is really needed, what the community needs, how the community needs, what kind of safety the community needs. And we don't get to see that when we see it from the outside in. And just getting to be there, it's like we know how the border works. We know where the border patrol is. We know their names, usually like it's this very fluid symbiotic relationship from all the dignitaries on both sides, from the business people, the families, and that really gets to give you a sense of the place when you really get to go inside through people's perspectives that are there. And so, yeah, I think that I wanted to. It took me a while, and what I explained earlier from like just showing this portrait of place, like little by little, I started getting closer and started shedding this sort of like, well, if I'm curating this, then it's not authentic because it's, because I'm biased. But actually, I'm I get to give more nuance because I'm biased, because I have this close experience to it that we don't get otherwise, because I'm close to this. I know that this shot from like, this 180 shot will give someone that's not here the whole picture. I know instead of just, showing the usual shot that people just come get. And because I have this closeness, I know, the nuances of the social hierarchy here. It's like people, if I did have that distance, I wouldn't be able to show all of that. And so I think you're right. I think that, there's this necessary change that is happening, as you're saying, as we're seeing in storytelling, that the closeness doesn't mean inauthentic, doesn't mean that it's uh um yeah, that it's not to be trusted. I think there's nuance that's gained because of it, and it's really important to be able to expand that gray space instead of having everything so black and white. I think it allows people to realize that we're all so much more alike and closer to each other, and it invites people to feel like they can be part of other cultures. And for us, this was so important because we're super proud Mexican Americans, we're super proud Americans, and for us, this is an American town, you know. Eagle Pass is an American town. It's a beautiful part of this American landscape that we have, and we don't get to. I'm sad that everybody else doesn't get that opportunity and invitation to explore it and to experience it the way that we have. So for us, you know, this film is very much an invitation to the border, you know, with everything that you're hearing on the news. So I can speak to Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras. So if you see it on the news and it seems scary, it's really chill, you guys. Like, you can really come and visit. My brother was just hanging out with the kids on the riverbanks on the Mexican side. Everyone is still just doing the same thing that we always do. And so,
They just closed one of the bridges down to have the annual cabalgata, which goes from the San Antonio Rodeo, and all of this like horse caravan goes through the bridge, and there's like, yeah, it's a whole fun cultural event. So come visit.
Very good. I definitely want to go. My family is from El Paso. That's where
oh,
that's where my family comes from. Never been. Hopefully, I want to make my way through there eventually. But thank you so much. I know our time is coming down very fast. We're almost done. But PBS February 10th is where you're going to be able to see this. Definitely check it out. It's definitely pointed to what is going on today. And would love to welcome both of you back for our new podcast that we are launching, the No Sabo Kids Chronicles, with me and my
oh, love
sister,
that.
Lisa Sandoval, and would love to have you back to talk about these issues and to really talk about being a Latino in America and what it's like after being born here and the struggles that we have to go through. So we'd love to invite you both back for the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. We'd
Thank you,
absolutely love
Michael.
that.
And
Thank
Yeah.
you
it's
so
so cool
much.
that you're working with your sister. Power to
Yeah,
siblings.